Welcome to podcast 2 for Breaking the Norm. Today we have Lindsay Bruce, Ex SAS turned competitive bodybuilder and business owner. We cover lots of things in this podcast, including the importance of a positive mentality, the importance of consistency, Lindsay's interpretation of success and the need to practice gratitude, and breaking big tasks down into achievable steps. We also cover other topics such as homelessness among veterans, Lindsay's approach to business, as well as the fitness movement and current changing culture. If you haven't already, check out our first podcast with Richard Shaw. It's had some great feedback, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. But for now, here's episode 2. Welcome to episode 2 of Breaking the Norm podcast. Today we have Lindsay Bruce, Ex SAS turned competitive bodybuilder and now gym owner at Elite Performance. Thanks for coming on, Lindsay.
And thanks for having me, Jack. It's been a while.
It has been a while. For those who don't know, I've known Lindsay for quite a few years. I used to train in the corner of his gym, martial arts, as a little fat kid. It's been a few years now. I've been away at uni, so I'm back. So the podcast is about people that are breaking the norm, how they achieve success, their mentality. But to start with, we're going to get to know our guests. So, Lindsay, what's your background? How have you come to be where you are now?
Well, I was in Hereford originally because I did selection back in early 2000 and stayed in the regiment for several years and then ended up staying here when I get out because I had some plans, obviously, which I'll go into later in the podcast. My plans involved what I do now. So it has all kind of come together. It's taken a while, but it's come together finally for me. So so when I left the forces, I stayed in Hereford and this is my home from home now.
So obviously you say the forces. What led to you joining the forces to start with?
I was from a military background. So my dad was in the army, his two brothers were in the army, and my two older brothers then followed suit when they were very young. So it was almost like a natural progression for me. I remember actually at one stage I wanted to do something else, and they were like, "No, you
you are going.
You're not doing that." You marched up to the Army Careers Office in Inverness, and Frog marched in and said, he's going to join the Royal Highland Fusiliers just like us. And within about 4 weeks, I was in the army. Didn't know what hit me. So that was how it all started.
Did you enjoy your time in the army?
Some of the most memorable moments of my life. Friends that I made in the army, especially. We still keep in touch and speak on a daily basis now. So, I mean, things like that's things that you really take from the army. Being in for, a long time, you get a sense of camaraderie there that you don't get anywhere else. And like I say, the friends I've made in the army will be friends for life. So I had some great years in the army. I loved it. But it's one of those things that when I decided to do something else, it was just time to move on. So it's just a phase of my life that I appreciate having, and I'm thankful for everything that happened for me in the army, but it wasn't what I was really destined to do long term, I don't feel.
Okay. So do you think it takes a certain mentality to not necessarily just the army, but obviously special forces? Is it a set type of person that's going to get in there? Or?
Definitely. I'm not saying it's beyond anybody. There's a lot of people actually who could do it and just don't even try. That's the sad thing about it. And a lot of the time it's because of a lot of urban myth surrounds the whole special forces thing, and in particular because I remember when I was a young boy, just joined the army, one of the first things we got asked, it was a day that we had to learn about all the different factions within the army and in various regiments, and the last cap badge to come up on the screen was the cap badge of the SAS, and I always remember my platoon commander at the time, he said, who thinks that they've got what it takes to maybe join this one day? And me and one other pal, we both put our hands up out of about 30 something people. There was 2 of us, and we got looked at like we were kind of, who do you think they are? But a few years later, I was actually living the dream. And
it's the positive mentality that got it, isn't it?
So I think it's all about the will. You've got to want to do it. Not anyone can just go and join the SAS, because it's something that you can't do something like that if you are made to do it or encouraged to do it. It's got to be something that you really, really want to do, because as you're probably aware that you need, if you don't want it enough, you won't get in. You wouldn't pass that type of training, because it's really the need to want to actually succeed and get that cap badge.
That's what will keep you going when you hit the wall type thing in the training.
Yeah. So I mean, I did everything very young. You know, I was always really keen. I always wanted to go to the next step. Like now, I was very impatient when I was a young soldier. I always wanted to, you know, get that next thing done as soon as it ticked something off. It was like, what next? I've always had that kind of mentality. I still have it now.
Yeah.
It's the impatient side of me, and it can sometimes be a bit of a demon, but I'd rather be like that than to be someone that just settles for what they have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Get things done that way, don't you? So leaving the forces, you say obviously you knew you wanted to do go on to different things. How did you come to start the gym then? Bridge the gap between the forces and the gym.
Well, I mean, when I was, like I said, I was a young soldier, very keen. I always saw the army as my life. You know, I was always going to stay in for 22 years. I was always going to do my full time. You know, there was never a part of me when I was young and I was in like the regiment, for example. When I first joined the regiment, you know, that was me for life. I didn't think of anything else that I wanted to do. But things change. You know, life changes, situations change, and I got a bit older. I had done quite a lot of things in a short space of time, purely because of the way the world was at the time, and I almost fulfilled that kind of need to do those things, and I just had that kind of, I had like an itch that I had to scratch. I knew there was something else that I wanted to do, and I was always into fitness. So it was always it was always a real passion of mine, fitness in every sort. You know, I used to box. I would do bodybuilding when I was a really young boy. When I was a teenager, I actually started bodybuilding. Not a lot of people actually know that, but I went through a couple of mad years of when I was a young teenager where I wanted to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then when I joined the army, obviously it was impossible to keep that lifestyle up. So it had to be put on the back burner for a few years. But then there came a time when I just started getting that kind of interest for the gym again, heavily. And like anything else in life, I've always been one of these people that if I want to do something, I need to do it full tilt. I don't like to do anything half-arsed. So when I started getting back into the gym, I'd been in a few gyms. It was actually military gyms that I went to, and I had a bit of an epiphany one time when I was actually away doing a job, and I went into this Canadian gym, and I just walked into this place, and I just thought, wow, I'd never seen a gym like this before. It was a basic setup, but it had everything that you needed. You know, it was very, very basic, but it did the basics really, really well. Friendly staff, you know, there was water there was room temperature water, there was chilled water. I thought that's quite cool. There was towels, there was shitload of a kit of equipment, and I just remember thinking to myself, I've not seen anything like this in the UK. And maybe I could do this. I thought maybe this is what I should be doing. I could go back and I could open a gym and make a business out of it, and this could be my lifestyle. And I thought, what a cool lifestyle that would be, to have just kind of living your hobby but getting paid for it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I didn't realise at that time it was going to be as difficult as it was. But I thought, I just had one of those moments, and I thought that I think this is the direction I have to go in. And it was, you know, a mid-career point. You know, I'd been in for about 10 years at this point, and I just decided over the space of a couple of days, now's the time. And that's when I started to kind of form a plan in my head of what I wanted to do next. And it came as a bit of a shock to people that I worked with and worked for, because they always saw me as this young lad who was mega keen and didn't have any sort of inclination to do anything else other than military-based stuff. So when I told my boss and stuff, I said, look, I want to leave. And he was quite baffled at the time, but at the same time, everybody was really supportive of everything that I wanted to do. So, you know, it did make things a lot easier that way.
Were your family okay with it after their military background? You quitting to, well, not quitting, leaving to do.
It was one of those situations, Jack, that I proved myself way before that anyway, because you know, I was the only one out of all of us to do what I did. But again, my family always supported everything I did, especially my brothers. You know, they were always really, really instrumental in everything I did, and I always looked up to them as a boy anyway. So when it came to change my mind and coming to a crossroads in my career, should I say, and deciding to do something else, my family and my friends, actually, I always remember one of my mates said, he says, look, you're the kind of guy that will do whatever you put your mind to, so if this is what you want to do, you're going to make it work. and don't listen to anyone, because there were people who did also say it won't work. You know, I had this idea of a business and I was wanting to open this gym, and because at the time I was into bodybuilding, I was actually getting ready to do competitive bodybuilding at the time. Everyone thought I was a bit mad and I'd lost my marbles a little bit. So you've taken this bodybuilding thing too far, and you know this isn't going to work. Hereford's too small for a bodybuilding gym. I don't want to open a bodybuilding gym. It's not about that for me. This is what I do, but I think there's something in this. You know, I think I can, and it was always about thinking about what I could provide for people, what I thought was missing.
You're always going to get a lot of naysayers. I think it's a bit cliche, but people want to tell you can't do something if they can't do it themselves, and you sort of feel a bit of resistance. But obviously, I wanted to touch on the fact that you've been quite successful after leaving the forces, but there's a lot of armed servicemen, women, that maybe aren't so successful when they leave. I know there's a lot of, I think, British Legion, I was looking at a report before I came, they said about 12% of the homeless in Glasgow are ex-servicemen.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason? What's missing when they're leaving? What is it?
You can only assume, you can only have your personal view on this, I think, and we've all got ours. It's a bit like, you know, everyone's got an opinion. I've got my own, and one thing that doesn't help the matter, I would say, I would touch on this very briefly, is social media.
Okay.
Because people are very, very, very gullible in a lot of ways. So they'll see something on social media that someone's shared or someone's posted, and it'll have something apparently factual on it, and before you know it, it's something that's just purely propaganda.
Yeah.
And people jump on the bandwagon, and they're always looking to blame somebody. This is the thing, it's always the blame game. It's a really, really sad state of affairs that we have that in any case, not just military, but homeless in general. I think it's a really, really sad thing, no matter what the background of the situation of the person. It just so happens that it seems to be this common trait of there are a lot of homeless people that were in the military. And what do you put it down to? I mean, some people say it can be the readjustment to civilian life. When you look at that as a percentage, it's a very low percentage, because there are a lot of people who have been in the military and get out of the military and do just fine. Yeah. But there are a percentage of people who just, something happens within their lives where they just either can't readjust or they hit some sort of a low, and that's, I think it's more of a personal thing from the individual, why they end up in the situation they are. And I think to combat that, what can we do? I mean, there are charities out there like getting the soldiers off the streets and all that. There are people doing some fantastic jobs helping soldiers either get off the streets or at least making things a little bit more comfortable for them when they're on the streets. But you do hear, I mean, I watched a programme on it a few years back, and there was a few high-ranking soldiers actually they ended up on the streets. And it is really, really sad. What can we really do? I mean, what can we do about homeless in general? It all comes down to a bigger umbrella, something that's a higher decision point than me or you can obviously decide. But I mean, I think that more of a support mechanism for soldiers leaving the army, because there is a slight stigma in the military that as soon as you walk out that gate, you're just someone who's been a number and you get forgotten about. It's not necessarily the case, you know. I mean, for me personally, I've always had a lot of support from the military. Even when I get out of the military, I've always been, you know, invited back to things, and I've always got that kind of the knowing that friends there would always help me out. But as far as the bigger picture goes, with soldiers, I think they just need some sort of system in place to help them maybe to make that journey from military life to civilian life a bit easier. But when you look at recent years, with a lot has happened, so going back to maybe, let's say 15 years ago, if you look back to people getting out of the military then, it was a bit of a different case than it was to maybe people getting out of the army in the last 5 years, because if you look at from the early 2000s up until just a couple of years ago, or even now, there's a lot of things happening. It's been a very, very busy military. There are a lot of young people, men and women, going out to hostile regions, doing things and seeing things that no one would ever want to see or do. And that's why obviously things like PTSD is a lot more highlighted these days. There's a lot more awareness about PTSD.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of our guests that we're going to be getting on is doing, he's rowing the Atlantic to raise awareness for PTSDs and ex-special forces as well.
Tim,
I
know
Tim. Tim Crockett. Yeah, and there's this 22 Kill Foundation. I'm not sure if it's the same in the UK, but the 22 press-up challenge was going around trying to raise awareness, but there is quite a high suicide rate, isn't there, with PTSD?
There's a friend of mine that actually started that as well.
Was it?
Yeah. He got Terry Lowe.
Okay.
Yeah, he does a great job with that as well, because there was, I think, you had some real A-list celebrities doing all that, and I think things like that are brilliant, because social media is everything these days, and that's how you spread the word.
Yeah, definitely.
Not the traditional way, because people are just kind of ignorant to things like that these days. If it's on social media and people are doing it that are famous, I know that might sound a bit sad, but people will follow suit, because people are quite, they've got a sheep-like mentality. So they'll just do it because they get tagged or something on a post, and it's social pressure then.
Talking about social media, I was going to approach this later on in the podcast, but we're there now. So it seems to have a lot of influence in the fitness industry. There's this fitness movement, which is good, positive, get people training more. Do you think social media can play a negative part as well?
It's the law of life. With every positive, there's going to be a negative. It's it's the yin-yang rule, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It depends what you focus on. That's why I always say you can focus on all the shit that happens with the negative side of things, or you can focus on everything that's right about it.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that old adage, if I was to give you 10 seconds now and say, look around the room and look for everything that's green, and they give 10 seconds and say, okay, how many things did you find that were green? You'd probably tell me 5 or 6 things. And I say, what did you find that was red? And you'll say, well, I wasn't looking for red.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a bit of a cliche, but
if you're looking for positives,
if you look, you will find what you're looking for. Yeah. So this is where the problem is, and obviously it's a collective problem, because people are on masses, and it's an influential world of social media. But I tend to focus on the things that are good coming out of the social media side of life, and when it comes to the fitness industry specifically. You get the people who will just go, oh, I hate the way that social media is taking the fitness industry. It's all faddy. Everyone's using buzzwords for everything. Everyone's reinventing the perfectly round wheel. It's all full of selfies and blah, blah, blah. But you got to think, okay, because you're focusing on that, you're going to see that it's just going to grind away at you. And the only person that's suffering from it is yourself.
It's the same in anything, though, isn't it? If you've got a positive mental attitude, you see positive things. And if you're negative, everything, you're in a bad mood, everything suddenly turns to negative.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something I could delve into that a bit more. But I mean, this is something I heavily work on with myself for the past several years, and with my clients as well. And it's something that has got clients a lot more success by the way they look at things. And you got to go to it's like anything. You can kind of put a plaster over it, or you can get to the root of the problem. And if you get to the root of the problem, then you won't need a plaster. Yeah. So, if going back to your question about, do I think it's negatively impacted the world of fitness, social media? For me, no, because I don't focus on the negatives. I decide what I want to focus on. So when you think about, look at the way the fitness industry is now. It's just exploded in the last few years. Yeah. I mean, way after I started my first gym. When I first started my first gym, women would go into the gym and they'd go on a cross trainer, and that's what women did in gyms. Or they would do, they'd go on a power plate when they came out. That was the thing. Or they would do fitness classes. Now, women lift weights.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
It's slowly moving, but like even my mum, I say about going to the gym. Sorry, mum, if you're listening. But I don't want to get too big. It's like. Yeah. I've been trying to get big for a while and I'm still tiny. Like, you're not going to lift the weight and get huge.
This is fine. That's fine, because I mean, it's just because they don't know.
Yeah.
There's plenty of subjects I could think about that I could probably ask someone in that profession. They would look at me like I was stupid, because I just don't know anything about what they do.
But I think it's slowly changing, though, isn't it? Like, people are slowly getting more into the fitness industry.
I mean, you think about it, it almost seems like a normal thing. When I think about the demographic that I have now is a far different demographic than I used to have going back 5 years. My gym used to be the place that women just wouldn't come in there unless they were with someone that had pretty much dragged them there to try it. But women didn't really come to my gym because they thought it was just full of bodybuilders, and they thought it was just full of weightlifters that were, with veins popping out their heads and making a noise. And understandably, if it was like that, it would be very intimidating. But as things have changed, it's become so much more popular for women to lift weights now, and especially with social media, because people actually realise that, especially these women that are doing bikini contests and getting in great shape all over the place, and they look amazing, and they all lift weights. If weights just made people big, then they would all be big, massive, muscly women.
Exactly. There's a lot more that plays.
And I think women need to understand. Well, they do understand more so now that just by lifting weights doesn't make your muscles big. And like you said, you just hit the nail on the head a minute ago when you said I've been trying to get big for years.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to always tell women, going back a few years when they would say this, when this was the common kind of thought of women going into a gym. They would say, I don't like to lift weights because I don't want to get big arms, I don't want to get big. I'd be like, well, if you do that, then I want to know, I want some of your DNA, because I can't do that, and I've been trying my hardest for years, and it's just not that easy to get big muscles. You got to it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of calories. You need to be in a calorie surplus for muscle to grow. I mean, so just if there's anyone listening that doesn't know about this, the only way you're going to build muscle, other than being a complete beginner, is if you're in a calorie surplus. Because you've got to build tissue, you've got to put more tissue on the body. It means getting heavier. In order to get heavier, you need to be eating more food than you're burning. If you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. Depending on how you do that, obviously depends on which type of weight you lose. But what I'm trying to say is you can only get big muscles if you are eating more
Putting the calories away.
Putting the calories away, yeah.
And a lot of calories as well.
A hell of a lot, consistently.
Yeah.
Over a long period of time. Otherwise, don't worry about getting too big.
Well, I think that'll lead us on to what would be your routine leading up to a competition, bodybuilding competition?
It's been a few years since I've actually done that now, so I can kind of go back in my memory there. And I did it many different ways. Part of the reason that I did bodybuilding was to learn about the human body, to learn about what worked, what didn't work, so I could then pass that on to other people, because you have to try it yourself.
Yeah.
And it was a great way of developing my coaching skills, because I would try something myself before I would often try it on someone else. So I would, whether it be a certain kind of training system or dietary strategy, I would always usually either definitely try it myself first, or at least to try it on someone else. But from my own personal preparation, like with everything else in life, the more you do something, the better you get at it, and the more experience you have, you don't tend to make as many mistakes as you would have when you first did it, for example. So when I did, if you take you back to like about 12 years ago when I did my first bodybuilding show, I pretty much went in blind. There wasn't that much information. The internet was there, but it wasn't to the extent it is these days. We didn't have Facebook. You had a couple of forums that were there that were a little bit sketchy, because you couldn't see the person who was giving the advice, so you didn't really know if it was legit or not. So what I basically did was I went with the old school basic knowledge of reading books from people who I thought had been successful in the past. So the classic book of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, or the Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger, that one, some of the stuff from Dorian Yates, Mike Menser, really old school guys. And they had all these books. When I look back now and compare it to what I see these days on a daily basis in social media, I think people looked better back then.
Yeah.
And things were simple. It just goes to show that, if you keep things simple and do it consistently, that's all that matters. People are just trying to reinvent the wheel these days. So what I did when I did my first show, I was actually working in Iraq at that point as well, so it made it really, really tricky.
So you were working in Iraq and training for bodybuilding.
But the thing is, in some ways it did me a favour, because I had that limited resources that I had to be extra resourceful. And I think that's always the case. People don't lack the resources, they lack the resourceful,ness in a lot of ways. Because if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way to do it. So I was working out in Iraq, and we had a very limited sources of food. The vegetables, it was really, really difficult to get fresh vegetables and fruit. So a lot of things I had out of cans, because there was like the American PXs over there, or one of the locals would bring some stuff in. So I had like tinned vegetables, tinned potatoes. That was my carb sources. I had chicken, or I had eggs. That was my. Didn't have any steak. Couldn't get decent steak anywhere. So I had chicken and eggs, and I had potatoes and veg, and so for my healthy fats and things, it would be like nuts or something like fatty fish or whatever, if we could get it, but that was difficult to get as well. So it was a really, really basic strategy that I applied, and all I did was really do it consistently. I did my cardio, a little bit of cardio. I trained twice a day sometimes, and I ate about 6 times a day, and I just counted what I ate. Started off with, quite a lot of calories, and then as I got closer to the show, I just pulled my calories back. And when I think about it, it's kind of all you have to do. All you're trying to do is keep yourself in a calorie deficit to keep burning body fat, and do what you can to maintain the muscle. So you're obviously training, eating quite a high protein diet, and you have enough carbs by way of fuel source carbohydrates. That was kind of it. It didn't really get much more complicated than that.
It must have taken an extreme amount of commitment in Iraq to do that.
Yeah, but I think this is a thing. It's kind of flipped in its head. If we're looking at competitive bodybuilding as a thing, I mean, I don't do competitive bodybuilding myself anymore. People are always saying, you should come back. And I could probably think of about 3 reasons why I should do bodybuilding again and go back on stage. And I could think about 30 reasons why I shouldn't do it. Because it just doesn't allow for anything else in your life. It's a very, very selfish existence for most people, and it has to be. If you look at the greats, look at someone like I mentioned earlier, Dorian Yates, classic example. Dorian he admits it himself in anything you listen to, he had to live like a robot. He was like a cyborg. Everything revolved around his regime. And the thing is, if that wasn't the case, he just wouldn't have done what he did. He wouldn't have been etched in stone in history, which he is now. But it took that level of commitment. You got to decide, am I prepared to do this? And the thing is, if you're not, then what's the point?
Yeah, you don't want to be mediocre.
And I don't feel like I could give that time to bodybuilding, for example. I think I don't want to be that selfish. I've got kids.
Yeah.
I want to give back a bit of my time. I want to develop my business, and I want to focus on helping other people. My focus these days, and has been for a while, but more so now, is to try and serve other people and get other people from where they are to where they want to get.
So, what has been your biggest setback to get in here, and how do you get out of a rut if you're in one? We talked about your positive mentality. Is that a big part?
I honestly can't pick a biggest setback. I wouldn't say I've ever been. I hate sometimes. Okay, you get people who have genuinely have had massive setbacks. I'm talking and I wouldn't even insult people by suggesting that I've had as big a setback as them, because you get people who have got genuine setbacks, like they get a really, really unfortunate health condition, or they lose a leg, or something traumatic happens, like they lose a family member, and that affects them. I'm fortunate, and I feel really, really thankful that I've never had anything that I could class as being a massive setback that it would want me to kind of preach about how bad I've had it or anything like that. I've been very fortunate in life, but I've had multiple small setbacks. Instead of getting one big one, I've had loads and loads of small ones, and medium-sized ones as well. and they're still happening. They always happen, but you've got to, again, it's about what you focus on. So I think there's 2 things you can. It's a bit like the old, again, using another adage with the dog. If you can either bite back, or you lie over and you roll over and die, sort of thing. It depends how you can, when you receive information coming in. So let's say you get a problem. You receive that information coming in. It's up to you what you do with it. So you can either let it get the better of you and go, oh shit, my life is over, everything's so bad, oh my poor me, and then you can become really unproductive in that as a result of that, and then as a result that problem becomes an even bigger problem. Right? Or you can decide to think, okay, it's almost like, this is a classic Tony Robbins type way, and I learned this very recently actually at a Tony Robbins seminar. He says he no longer sees problems as problems, he sees them as worthy opponents. And I think it's a great way of looking at it, because it's almost like a challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Because problems are there for a reason. Problems aren't there to give you a problem. A problem is there so that you get the best out of yourself. It's to push you, that's all it is. And you need problems in life. I think if you don't have problems, that's a bad thing, because it all comes back to that variety in life. You need variety, and part of that variety is you need downs to match the ups. It's not all about, you look at any successful businessman or sports athlete or anyone that's actually had to, pull their best out of the bag. They've all had massive problems. or at least had some problems I've had to get over, because without the problems, if you don't have any problems in life, where does the need exist to then think, well, I need to overcome this to be my best?
You're never going to get better.
If life is really comfortable, it's like, the opposite. I should have said the enemy of great is good, I always say. And if everything's just good, you're never going to be great, because it's just good. It's never bad.
Yeah.
If something becomes really, really shit, it can propel you to the next stage.
Definitely.
So for me, that's what I do. So I've had lots and lots of problems. I mean, lots of financial problems through the years with business, because obviously you're trying to grow the business, everything financially goes back in. So you're always living in that line of, sometimes where the next project is going to come from, where the financial support is going to come for that. Because you think about this project, for example, when I took this on like 9 months ago, I sat there and thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? And I didn't really know how I was going to do it. I didn't really know exactly how. Of course I didn't. I didn't have an exact strategy and write everything down and have every single thing planned out. It's not reality. Sometimes you've got to wing some things. You have to just kind of go with it. You've got to go ride the wave. And if you have a plan, then sometimes the last 5 minutes in, you got to crumple it up and write a new plan, because the situation's changed. And you've always got to sometimes prepare for the worst. So you think, okay, if I think it's going to cost me this much, I always say double it, and then you're maybe somewhere near it, right? So through the years, it's always been about, the challenges have always been about, how do I do the next thing? How am I going to get around this? And if the thing is, if you're committed to something, you'll always find a way. It's as simple as that.
Definitely.
There's always a way. No matter how shit life gets, I always say that. It never gets that bad, because the shit times are there to propel you forward.
It's about the mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've read quite a few books this year, and a lot of top athletes and top businessmen. You read their background, and some of them have had a horrendous life. Like absolutely terrible. You couldn't even imagine it, and they're at the top of their industry or profession now, because they've just carried on. They've got the positive mindset.
Yeah. And so there is I was having this conversation with someone not so long back. Sometimes you do see this common trait in people that are at the top, especially people who have products or services that they sell. It's almost like a fashionable thing to say, I had £6 in my pocket when I was 19 years old, and blah, blah, blah. It's a fabrication of what the truth actually is, because sometimes it's a bit like a Hollywood movie, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the movie Braveheart, for example, if you know your Scottish history.
I know, right.
But if you think about the movie, this is a classic example. The movie Braveheart, if that was to be made and produced and filmed as life actually happened, not that anyone knows exactly what happened, it's an interpretation, really, isn't it, through passed on information. But if it was to be filmed in a way that things actually happened chronologically, it wouldn't have made a successful film, because a film needs to have structure. It needs to have the bit at the end, it needs to have that epiphany, it needs to have that, that sort of climax at the end, and
that Hollywood moment.
Leave you with that Hollywood moment. So things are sometimes, the truth is almost bent in a way to fit this, to fit a good story structure, and a lot of the time that's what I feel a lot of people do these days, and it's almost like a trendy thing. They're encouraged to do it. I even did a course in public speaking last year, and I almost felt like it was being taught that you had to kind of have this rags to riches style story, just because it sounds good. Because if you go to any big event where there are speakers there, a lot of them will theme their whole story in that way. It will be how bad they had it and how they came through, and then they sell you some shit at the end and say, go and sign up for my program. It's how they sell business. So sometimes there's not always a lot of genuinity in every single case. But if you look at the older stories, I think they probably got more truth behind them, because it was less of a thing back then. They didn't have social media. So people like Alan Sugar, Lord Sugar, that's one of those. He didn't have much, and he started from nothing. And that, for me, that's a believable one. And there are other ones that are visually that really, really evident. So people who, what's his name? The guy he's limbless, no arms, no legs, does public speaking.
Oh, Nick
Vujicic.
Yeah.
absolutely, one of the most inspirational people I think I've ever heard speak.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely phenomenal guy. I mean, I always say that if someone thinks they're having a shit day, send them one of his presentations and you'll see who's got a right to complain, and someone who also doesn't complain and just focuses his whole being in helping other people. I think that's amazing. There's a lot of things that people can learn from people like that, and that's obviously something you can say this guy has actually had challenges in life.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
So with this podcast being focused around success, how do you define success? What is success to you?
Success for me, I think it's not about money. It's not about things that like material items that you have. It's not about fancy holidays, living on the beach. It's about fulfillment. I've learned this over the last several years myself, is that, like to use another common phrase, that success without fulfillment is ultimate failure.
I like that one.
How do you sort of quantify that? And well, you look at someone like Robin Williams, right, a famous Hollywood actor. He achieved everything that he set out to achieve, but he still wasn't. He obviously wasn't fulfilled because of what happened. And there are a lot of cases like that where you get people who have got a lot of money, for example. Because everyone seems to have problems, and it always comes back to finances a lot of the time. I find when you speak to people, I've been to loads and loads of seminars, training seminars, educational seminars, public speaking events, everything you see online, everything seems to be focused around how can you make more money, right? So people focus on the Yankee dollar sort of thing, and they think, how can I make more money? But that's not going to make you happy. It's about what you do to create that that bank balance that will make you happy. So what you do on a daily basis, for example,
if you're enjoying your lifestyle,
and honestly, if you're giving back, I think the way that you'll truly be happy in life is if you're giving back and seeing it in other people. That's payment. Because it's like any business, for example, right? It's like me doing this or you doing what you do. If you're providing a service or a product that's making someone feel really, really happy, that's ethical, for example, like if you got like for me, I've got a place where someone can come in the door, they can be sat there in tears when I interview them, and they can be telling me how unhappy they are and how many times they've tried and failed, and they're clinging to you for desperation to help them. They desperately want you to help them because their biggest downside in life is the fact that they feel like shit, they look like shit, and they're really, really unhappy and unhealthy. Now, if I can then take that person on a journey and give them full support and put them in an environment where they feel supported and feel encouraged and somewhere they want to come on a daily basis, and then I'm not talking about 12 weeks later, I'm talking about 6 to 12 months later, and you see that same person and they've lost some weight and they've got their confidence back and they've met people that they consider friends, and they've got a social circle around them that they consider to be a circle of close people, like a family. That's when I and then especially if they then tell you that you've changed the way my life feels, or that's it. That is the sweet spot. And the thing is, if you're doing that repeatedly over and over again, that's going to spread. People are going to tell each other. So if you then can influence the lives of many people by doing what you do or what you provide, you're going to get paid for it. People are going to pay you for it. But you don't focus on just the payment, unless you want to be like, if you were someone who just did like trade in the stock market, or that's all financial based. There's no real fulfillment in that apart from self, right? And again, if you do that and you're successful at it, you'll get loads of money. But
the thing with that is, for them to make money, almost always somebody else is losing it.
Of course, it's like that balloon effect. If someone's winning, someone's losing. In anything. And again, it's about that balance in life, negative and positive. It's a rule of life. If you look at anything, that's what happens.
So you say success to you is helping other people?
Fulfillment in general, and fulfillment will come from many things. So whether it's spending more time with your family, whether it's which I would actually like to do more of now, because what's been happening here, for example, I've had to put everything I have into this place to get it going. And again, it's a bit like if you compare this against the bodybuilding thing. If I went into this half-arsed, it wouldn't work.
No,
it just wouldn't happen, because you need that driving force, which is me directing everything that happens, which is telling people what to do, making decisions on what has to be done. That's all coming from me. I can filter that down towards other people. Ultimately, they do the work, and I'm not in here painting skirting boards. Well, I've been doing some things like that, but I mean, I've been mucking in. But ultimately, everything comes from me. Everything stems from what I say and what I instruct people to do. So I have to submerge myself in this until it's done. And at the moment, I feel like I have been run ragged. But again, I don't see it in that way. I see it as a means to an end, where this is all going towards something that's going to be great.
The journey to the goal.
Of course it is, yeah. And it's a bit like when I was dieting for a bodybuilding show. There was times when, I'd be so tired I couldn't hold my head up, right? And but the thing is, for me, going even further back, I'd had it a lot harder than that. So in some ways, having the mental capacity to do bodybuilding and diet, and you're still getting fed, you train in a warm gym, you go home to a warm bed at night, you wake up in a warm bed, all you have to do is get your kit on and go out the door and walk, do a bit of walking and stuff. I never ever used to complain about that, because it's like, I've had it really difficult in the past before that. I've been in a situation where I thought I was actually starving. I've been really, really tired, and especially when you're really, really tired and you think that someone's out to get you. Mm-hmm. That's a situation. That's when you really can say you've had it hard. But I mean, for me to go from that into something like bodybuilding, it was like what's everyone complaining about. It was easy. And now, it's at the end of the day, I've got a roof over my head, I've got food in my belly, and a license for my telly. And all I want to do is.
But it definitely is about that mindset, though, I think.
Yeah.
And everything.
Everything is back to mindset, I think.
So let's talk about elite performance then. What is it you're trying to build?
Well, since I started my first business, like going back to what I said about my first gym, it was just always going to be a gym. And it was kind of, there you go, it's a gym, we're going to do a gym really, really well. We're going to fill it with loads of good equipment, and I want to help people get fit and get healthy. And that was always the main focus. And up until the last year, that's always been the focus. But again, like everything else, it got to a stage where I was where my first gym is at the moment and still is. When I opened that, it was half the size that it is now, and then a few years down the line, I expanded that and made the gym bigger. As when we had that next unit, took the next unit on, we made the gym bigger. We started implementing different things, and then came a time when I thought, wait, I feel we're kind of outgrowing this now, or not outgrowing it so much so that we had too many people to fit in. It wasn't about that. It was about, I don't feel this is fulfilling me anymore. I felt myself almost getting to a point where I thought I was kind of in a rut, like I was kind of settling for the way life was. I was working on my own personal development, but as a business, I would look back and go, where have I really taken the business in the last 2 years? Where's been the growth? And when I was having my critical eye look over it, I would often say, I don't feel I've really done enough in the last 12 months or whatever it was. So I was then always on the lookout for something else, and I always thought there was more to give as far as a fitness facility is concerned, because anyone can open a gym. It's just there's gyms all over the place. There are a couple opened recently locally, right? Yeah. And not taking away anything from those businesses. They're all businesses that do their own thing and they suit a lot of people, and that's all. I'm cool with all that, right? I don't ever speak down about other businesses at all, and I think they have a place. But I also think, a bit like what we were saying earlier on, you talk about, you can eat 10 hamburgers, and obviously, like when you look at the Beefy Boys, for example, and they opened in Hereford, they obviously started and thought, yeah, you can get a hamburger in all these restaurants, but we can do a better one.
For those that are listening, Beefy Boys, a local burger restaurant who from Hereford, they went out and I think they won World's Best Burger in Las Vegas or something crazy.
I don't know what place they got, but I know they went out there twice. I think they've been out there twice competing at this championship.
Yeah,
this burger championship.
They're a very successful burger company from the well-known burger city of Hereford.
Yeah, and if you think about burgers in Hereford, that's what you think about. They've got that stamp now. It's like the Beefy Boys are the people who do the best burger in Hereford. I want a free burger the next time I come in there. It's getting that one in there. A little plug. But it's true. But it proves the point that you could get a burger before they existed. You just couldn't get a burger like that.
Yeah.
So this is when I think about a gym. I think, how can I not? I don't like to use the term "be better than anyone." It's not about that. How can I provide more? How can I be different and give people what I think they need And sometimes they don't know what they need until it's there. So until you present something to someone, then they go, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's handy. So with the new elite performance, I'm trying to create something that's just more of a sort of hospitality solution. So like a complex, like a fitness. Because I always had this idea of like a fitness village. I always thought that would be a cool idea.
That is a cool idea.
Like a fitness village where you could have everything that was revolved around making people feel better about themselves. And some of that is in a posy way, like we've got a tanning bed upstairs. It's like, I don't use tanning beds anymore. I used to be a bit obsessed by them when I was in my sort of vain days. But I don't tend to use them much now, but it's something that people like to do because vitamin D and all that. They don't get enough sun in this country. Give people a bit of a healthy glow. Whether you agree with that or not, I think it's not a bad thing. We've got beauty therapy upstairs. We'll have a hairdressers upstairs. They'll have a barber in with it as well. So the customers can come on a Saturday. They can park the car in the car park outside. We've got loads of parking outside, free parking.
It's basically like a garage for a human. You can come in, get your tan, get your haircut.
You can get it. It's like a one-stop shop for health and fitness. We've just recently secured the agreement with Hunter G's, which is a local healthy food company. Katie and the girls are coming in here. They've just been setting up, and they've got a healthy food kitchen. With that, they're going to do things like meal prep. So, and this all goes towards the bigger picture. So, we've got Hunter G's doing the healthy food. You can come here, you can get a healthy meal. You can sit in and get a healthy meal. You can have your meals prepped for you to go to work. You can have it delivered to you eventually. All these things are just convenience that people are going to help people get fit and healthy. We'll have a much more upgraded gym facility. We'll have like an 8,000 square foot gym. We've got plusher changing rooms this time, so we've gone a bit more upmarket with things like the fixtures and fittings in the changing rooms. We've created an area outside that you can see there. That's more of a kind of a social gathering point. So somewhere that you would want to come in and you want to hang about. Because this is what I used to find down at the other place, was that people would come and go, but no one would really hang around and stay, other than to maybe chat to us at the counter or whatever. But what I've created out there is like a lounge area that you look at it and it kind of invites you in to want to sit down, and that's going to then create a social aspect of the facility, which is then going to help people meet each other.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, how do you create a positive environment? Because obviously people to come here, they're going to want to have a positive environment, aren't they?
I think a really, really important part of this is, I've got to be here some of the time. I can't always be here, but when I'm here and I'm passing that on to my staff, that kind of attitude and making them feel like they want to be there, and then they're going to pass that on to people that walk in, and it just kind of spreads like anything else. It's a bit like any environment. If you go into if you worked in a factory, you were on a shift with 6 other people, and everyone hated their job, and people clock watched, and people just complained about how shit it was all the time, then you're going to feel pretty crap yourself, unless you're an exceptionally not confident, but positive human being with a great mindset. You can maybe then flick it around in its head, but 1 against 6 is going to be a lot more of a harder game to play. But for creating a positive environment, I think just being what it is anyway, it's a fitness facility that people come here to better themselves. There's things like little. I tell you another thing as well, little subconscious messages. So if you put things in the walls, and a lot of them are kind of, some people think they're quite corny or a bit cliche, but if you're putting messages up that people can see, it's long term effect wise, it has an imprinting effect. So if someone looks at a wall and it's got something on it that makes them go, oh, that's quite a cool. I know I heard that before. That actually makes me think. It could be some sort of motivational quote. Just sending the right messages all the time, saying the right things to people all the time. Making sure we're saying the right things to the people that walk in the door, giving them what they need.
Creating that mindset.
Creating an environment. And this all comes from the pre-frame of when people join up as well. So what we don't do things the way other people do them. And it's not to hinder people, it's to help them. Because at the end of the day, when someone comes to make a decision of joining a gym, it's a financial commitment. But it's also an emotional decision that creates that financial commitment. So it's not like going out and buying a burger. That's you go and you buy a burger. That's it. It's done and dusted.
Yeah.
If someone's going to sign up to a place where they think they're going to have to spend the next 12 months, because ultimately a lot of gyms are contract based. We're contract based. but we do that because we want people to commit, because we only want people to commit.
Yeah.
Because you've got to think about what's the result what's the effect you're trying to have, what's the result you're trying to create. Well, ultimately, a service or a product has to have a result. Otherwise, you don't have a good business.
Yeah.
Right? Ultimately, that does come down to the individual. They have to actually do the work themselves, and they have to get off their ass and do it. But you need to facilitate that as best possible. So when someone comes in to here, we pre-frame the whole thing in a way that we tell them that we only want people who are committed. By that I don't mean people who are serious about their training already or who have been training for 10 years. It's not about that, because that's the other thing that's kind of been rumour control in previous years, that you only come here if you are an athlete, you only come here if you get, rippling muscles all over your body. It's all the crap. We welcome everybody, but we want the person who wants to start. We want the person who's never lifted a weight before in their lives, and they just need a strategy. They just need the place that's going to get them from A to B. So when they come to join up, we don't just go, we want loads of people in the door. We want to sell memberships off really, really cheap just to get numbers in, because a lot of places will rely on that model of, let's get loads and loads of people in, let's charge them peanuts and hope they don't use the facility because it's wear and tear in the equipment, it's overcrowding the facility. They just think, well, they're not charging them much anyway, so when they don't come and use the facility, then they're probably not going to cancel.
They're not going to think, I've got to go.
It's not a heavy financial commitment. So we tend to, admit it, we charge a bit more. Not stupidly amounts more, but we charge a bit more because we want people to take it more seriously. And if they do that, we can provide more as well. We can provide a better service and better product. So when we interview people, we say, look, you need to commit to this. You have to understand it's a two-way thing. We need you to commit because we will commit to you. And if you commit to yourself and you let us commit to you, then the results are going to be there. It all comes down to commitment. So that's the difference, I think. That's one of the main differences we have.
That's good. I suppose your people, your customers will almost be your advertising, because their positive mentality, they go out, tell their friends. If they're enjoying the environment and they're succeeding, they're going to bring other people along, aren't they? So.
Well, it's like anything. And there's lots of examples of this. Look at CrossFit, for example, right? And I'm even giving bloody CrossFit a plug here. So if Jeremy Weeding's listening, he better... he can't give me a freebie because I wouldn't do CrossFit. But
I better mention Loughman's gym as well before I get
and Charlie as well. I'm not sort of favouring one over there, but if you look at CrossFit as a movement, how well they've done with that name.
Yeah,
it's amazing what they've done with that whole culture. Didn't say cult, I said culture, right? But it is a culture. It's because they've created raving fans, whether you like it or not. They've created raving fans, and that's what I think.
And they have got people into it that probably wouldn't have stepped in a normal
They've got
gym.
people off the chair,
from
away from the desk.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's people who say, "Oh, yeah, but the people are getting injured and stuff." That just comes down to bad coaching, right? That's down to the coaching and the organisation or the facility, should I say, not down to that as a thing, as an overall umbrella. So, I think with the Elite brand, we were doing the same. We're trying to do the same, which is to create something that people want to be part of. But you have to give it an identity. So people have to identify themselves as being that. So I remember years ago when I started getting into bodybuilding, and I know a few, some of the stuff that I used to wear, I cringe now because I was just trying to kind of be part of that whole culture of bodybuilding. So I'd wear a t-shirt with a guy with big biceps and with the sunglasses on or something, on the top, and it looked like a dick. But at the same time, it comes back to the same thing. And by the way, when you would see someone else in the street wearing something that was of a brand that only associated around bodybuilding, it was almost like that nod of respect of, we're kind of in the same club. We don't know each other, but we know what we're about, right? Yeah. And people are wearing the Elite branded t-shirts, for example, or the hoodies. They're wearing them because they buy them because they want to be seen to be training here.
Yeah.
And then because it's got this because the name obviously is what it states, Elite Performance, it sounds pretty cool, and it's known heavily as being somewhere that the more serious trainers go, or the people that are more serious about what they do go. So people are going to want to identify themselves with that. So they'll go, can I buy a hoodie? And they'll wear it, and people will see it. And it's quite funny actually, because my daughter Ava, she was talking to one of her friends in school a few weeks ago, And she says, "Oh, what's that? What's that hoodie you wear?" And she says, "Oh, it's my dad's gym." And she goes, "Oh, I thought it was some sort of big clothing brand." And I was like, "Oh, I'll take that."
Because, you start that now.
Obviously, it's been perceived as being some sort of, something more than what it is. So I was quite happy with that. But you've got to create something that people want to be part of, like a movement, really.
Well, I think the culture's changing in general now, because you can see it in the amount of coffee shops, I think. Because now people, rather than going to the pub for a pint, there's a lot of people that are going for a coffee, and like Hereford alone and all across the country, coffee shops are popped up everywhere. Yeah. And I think it's just generally more of a change in culture. Do you think?
Yeah, and again, this is one of the reasons why we're having one in here. So we've got girls from Hunter G's coming in here because we want to have that social aspect of it. So, but we would rather have them stay here and do that, because all the time we get people in the gym, they'll finish training and they'll say, "Oh, let's go into town for a coffee," or "Let's go into town for a burger or a Nando's or something." And you think, well, if we had that facility here, not everyone would do it, and people would still want to change and they'd want to go elsewhere. Fine, but if you can provide something that's as good as any of them, if not better,
and healthy,
quality, and it's healthy, and it's already where they are, then why do they feel the need to go somewhere else? So this is what I'm saying about this whole hospitality solution, which is everything under the same roof, where they come to work out, but it's not just about working out, it's about going somewhere to chill out with your mates and have a coffee, and it's a whole social thing then as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, and look at the way the town centre is now. If you look at the nightlife, if you look at the nightlife 20 years ago, I first came down to Hereford 18 years ago, and the town was busy probably 5 nights out of 7.
It's famous for the Crystal Rooms, wasn't it?
Crystal Rooms on a Wednesday.
In the day, yeah.
I won't say what they used to nickname that Wednesday night in the Crystal Rooms. Those who know, right? And those who are old enough know. But there was a certain night that we used to nickname the Wednesday night in the Crystal Rooms, and it was a bit of an old-fashioned kind of night rather than a ravey night. But it would be the Crystal Rooms. You would go around all the clubs. There'd be something happening in different places every night, and it was always a really, really good nightlife, and it was always busy. But you got to look at the bigger picture there and think, at the same time, no one was really going to the gym. Going to the gym was the minority of people went to the gym to work out. You're almost looked at as being a weirdo if you lifted weights. Whereas now, everybody's doing it.
Well, I think people are realising, like, it's cliche, but healthy body, healthy mind, isn't it? Like, I know I was listening to Theo Paphitis from Dragon's Den. He's left now, but he gets up every day and goes running. Or I know I've mentioned on my last podcast Will Smith, and he says by running and getting to the point where you feel like you've got to give up and you carry on, you're creating that mental toughness to work in all areas.
Yeah, and a lot of these people will do it right at the beginning of the day. It's a bit like priming yourself.
Start off the day right.
So there's little things you can, and the thing is that there are shortcuts to this now as well, and I use one as well myself, called priming, which takes about 10 minutes, and it's all to do with, it's a bit like, it's like meditation for those who can't be asked to do meditation.
Okay,
or those who
sounds ideal for me.
those who don't have the time to, some people just don't, I can't really, I've tried it. I've tried meditating and stuff for lengthier periods of time, and 10 minutes is about my limit. I get bored after 10 minutes, and I do enjoy it when I'm doing it, but I always used to think, if there's a quicker version of this, I'm sure there's a quicker way. And there's lots of apps and stuff you can get these days, but a lot of people, they get up in the morning, and the best thing to do in the morning is to move. The best thing you can do is move, because it gets everything going, and it wakes you up and it gets you ready to start the day. And the other thing is to have rituals. I think it's really important. You look at anybody who's successful, they all have rituals. Whatever it is they do, they'll have a ritual they do every day. And there are different ways you can do that and kind of manage it. But I think it's really, really important to have rituals. And one of the rituals that I have, that I started a few years ago now, is to practice gratitude. And it's something that's probably, out of everything that I've done, I mean, I used to get up every single morning to do my cardio when I was doing bodybuilding. But years ago when I was doing it, I just did it purely for the mechanics of doing it, because I knew I had to do it. So it was almost like this non-negotiable decision that I had to make, that I'd get up in the morning, it would be part of my plan, I would go and do my cardio, and then I'd eat my breakfast, and then I'd start my day. But I didn't really get as much benefit out of it then as I think I could have if I'd really had my mind to what it is now. Because I've got my mindset far more tuned in these days than I had even a few years ago. I think I used to do things years ago and just because I had that within me to do it, but I maybe didn't appreciate myself doing it as much as I should have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I do now is the first thing I do every morning is I exercise gratitude. I don't write it down anymore. I used to write it down. I used to have, you've probably seen some of these diaries that you can get and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I did it in the beginning. I started to just get up in the morning and write down 4 things I was grateful for. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be something of significance. It just means anything. And it's usually the really, really simple things in life. Like, you know, the fact that you're still breathing, or the fact you've got a roof over your head, or you live in a place that you don't have to worry about getting shot every day.
Yeah.
These simple things, having arms and legs, you know, anything. But if you can just get yourself in a frame of mind where you feel grateful for a few things, as soon as you get up in the morning, it pre-frames your whole day. And it's really, really powerful, and especially when you write it down. So those that haven't done it before, and those that, there are people who, honestly, there are people that get up in the morning, they're pissed off from the moment they wake up till they go to bed.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Like,
and it's really common.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's about the influencing factors that are surrounding that person's day. So everything they see, people who they speak to, and it's that whole power of 5. You become an average of the 5 people you spend most time around. You know, so those you become who your friends are, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can sort of break the mould and just do something as simple as practice gratitude.
Or break the norm.
Break the norm, yeah. I like that. That's good. Well timed, well placed. But yeah, I think gratitude's probably the most powerful thing that I think I've done that everything else has stemmed from in recent years, because, you know, I would do things, even like when it came to getting into the SAS years ago when I did that very young, and I had certain things as a young man, I had certain things within me that pushed me in those moments, that I was just one of those very competitive people. I wanted to challenge myself, I wanted to prove people wrong, all those things. But at the same time, I was, honestly, when I was younger, I was a very angry person. Now, in some ways, for doing certain things to do with the job, there's situations where you have to be angry. Yeah. And it's good to channel the anger in some ways that you need to use it, but to be angry all the time isn't a good thing, obviously. And I found myself a few years ago just getting sick of being angry all the time. And it wasn't like...
Makes you ill, isn't it?
It wasn't overtly angry. It wasn't like I was going around shouting at people, but that would sometimes happen as well. But I wasn't managing it very well. I wasn't managing my own mindset very well. And I would feel quite a lot of anger quite often. I would feel a lot of... I feel like things were against me all the time. Like I was always climbing a struggle uphill. And that's when I really get into my self-development several years ago, and I really started to consciously do these things. And when I started reading certain things, listening to people like Tony Robbins again, I mean, he's been massively influential in my life in the past few years because of certain strategies, simple strategies I put in place. And it did literally change my life. And it's not about what I've done or where I am now, it's about how I feel that's different, how I feel on a daily basis. You know, most of the time I'm actually really happy most of the time now. I don't let things get to me like I used to let them get to me. I feel far more fulfilled within my life, and I'm just a lot more grateful purely because of things that I do on a daily basis, like practicing gratitude. And then first of all, I used to start writing it down. I used to write down the journal until it became habit. And now I just do it. I just practice it you could do it anywhere. You do it in the shower, in the morning. You can just be thinking about it. And as long as you're thinking about it, you can't actually be grateful and pissed off at the same time. It's impossible.
That's a challenge for anyone listening.
Try it. You can't be grateful and angry at the same time. So, and again, this is another little thing. Who's the gentleman you've got doing the master practitioner, the NLP practitioner?
Oh, Gary Jones.
Gary will probably echo this as well. And when in part of his when he comes on, is about when you feel you're not in a good state. For example, if you feel that you're pissed off or angry or upset or whatever that may be, there are certain things you can do rapidly that will just change your mindset in an instant. And that's about, you know, changing your focus, you know, changing your physiology, your focus, the language that you tell yourself. And that's a classic sort of NLP thing as well, is that you can get yourself out of a bad state into a good state within an instant. And if you can think it's something that you feel grateful for when you feel pissed off, you'll feel less pissed off at least.
So it's almost like Buddhist philosophy, I suppose. You're in control of how you feel. Like if you choose to be happy or you choose to be angry, it's all down to you.
Yeah, it is. It all stems from that, by the way. That all comes from that. They're the originators of all this.
Yeah.
we're just kind of mimicking it. But it's powerful stuff, and it's something that anyone can do. And often I look around now and I see people acting a certain way or speaking a certain way, and like you say, everything comes from mindset. This is why I'm going into this, is because the mind's a powerful thing, and if you can master your own mind, everything else becomes easy.
Yep.
It's the main thing you have to master, because it's the central part of the whole system. Everything stems from how you think and how you interpret information coming in, and that's what then causes the actions that you then take, or the decisions you make are based upon that, how you feel. So I look around often and I'll see people acting a certain way. Like if I go and I could be driving down the road and I'll see someone cut someone else up, and I'll see the person call them some sort of untoward name, and I'll just think to myself, I wish you could just take that person aside and speak to them for 5 minutes and go, do you realise you could change this? Because the thing is, that same person will be doing this on a daily basis. They'll be going around angry everywhere, they'll be shouting at people, they'll be
everything's someone else's
having
fault.
Road rage is always to do with, but you don't do it in the street when you walk around, do you?
No.
When someone bumps into you in the street, you don't have a horn to beep at them. You don't shout at them. You just kind of walk on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a weird old thing, the human mind.
It is, definitely.
It's one that I'm trying to master.
You're doing a good job by the sound of it. So on that note, we've probably covered a lot of it, but what's your part and advice to people? Like how to our listeners, how would they break the norm? How do they achieve success?
You got to, first of all, define what is the norm.
I suppose the norm at the moment seems to be, and this is no dig at anybody that's listening, it just seems to be plodding along doing something you're not happy doing. Because there's nothing wrong with doing the norm of 9 to 5 job, doing that if you're happy. Or doing what is perceived to be normal if you're happy doing it. But the norm, I think I've come to see at the moment, is people getting up to go to a job they hate. And I know some people don't have a choice in that, but they just carry on to live a lifestyle they don't actually want. Whereas if they sat back and thought about the alternatives, you could probably make something else work. How do you break out? Like what we've already talked about, the positive mentality. I think that's a main thing, isn't it? To see the opportunities that are there. But
you have to have a plan. I know that contradicts what I said earlier about having a plan, then ripping it up 5 minutes later.
It was a starting point, isn't it?
But you need. This is the thing, and there's a lot of different strategies for this as well. If you think about a journey from A to B, from one checkpoint to the next, so you think about when I was on SAS selection, you arrive at a checkpoint and you go, this is where I am. Now where do I need to go to? Okay, this is your next checkpoint. Show me where that is in the map. So you go, this is where you have to go. Okay, away you go. They don't tell you how to get there. But one thing you do know is where you have to get to.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know your next grid reference or how to get there, what are you going to do? You're just going to start walking and hope for the best. Well, there's no point in that. It doesn't make any sense. And this is what people are doing in life. They're bimbling along, living day to day, not thinking that far ahead because they're stuck in this kind of... They've been victims of this dogmatic thought process or mentality that this is what society says they have to be doing. This is what everyone else does. That old thing. No one, you can't do that. No one else is doing it. Or this is what everyone else does. We just have to get on with it. Well, that's fine if again, like you say, if you're happy. By the way, there are people who are happy doing that, and I applaud those people, because the fact of the matter is we need people like that as well. We need people to be happy doing that. It's a bit like if you think of a factory that supplies, a worldwide brand. Well, not everyone wants to be the CEO. It wouldn't work if they did.
Yeah. Soldiers
on the ground, the entry level young soldiers. Every single organisation needs the people who are happy to do the job at the bottom.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
And if they're genuinely happy doing that, then fine.
Well, it works for a lot of people, doesn't it? Sometimes they're happy doing that.
It does, but then you got to find out, really, are they happy doing it, or are they just doing it because they think they have to do it? It's just kind of what your point is.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. But I often think that the people that question this, so the people that actually ask themselves the question you just asked me, how do you break the norm? And they're probably asking themselves, the ones that actually do break the norm are probably asking themselves that at a very young age, or at some point. And the thing is, it will only happen, like I said, when you need problems in life. Often it comes at a point where something really bad happens, or it has to get to a point where someone thinks, I'm not prepared to stand for this any longer. I'm not prepared to settle for this lifestyle any longer, or this unhappiness, or this, whether it be lack of finances, lack of happiness in their relationship, or the job that they're doing. If they're unhappy, if they're just a bit unhappy, but then it gets a bit better every day, then they're probably going to continue to do that for a long time and continue to be kind of in between. So that horrible in between place, which is probably the worst place to be. It's better to be at either one side or the other. It's actually sometimes better to be at the really bad end, because at least something good might come from that. Like I said, propulsion to the next level. But often the change will happen if someone gets to a point where they go, you know what, this is it. This is my breaking point. I'm not prepared to do this any longer. And then they'll do something that will then cause that change to start happening. But getting back to my point of the whole like having a map, having a plan of some sort, you got to have a rough idea of where you want to go. What do you want to be doing? And if you don't know what you want to be doing, you need to find out what it is. And a lot of people don't get to that place because they don't really figure out what they want to do.
Do you physically write your goals down?
Yeah. I've got I could show you. I mean, I've got a whole life planner which has got every single aspect of my life planned out, and it will change. Like everything changes, because, like I said, situations change. So you go back to 20 years ago, my life goals were very different back then than they are now, and things do change. It's okay to change. It's fine, but as long as you've got complete clarity on it. And I think this is where people go wrong, is they have that fogginess in the mind that if they don't know what they want to do in life, and some people genuinely just don't know what they want to be or they want to do, and that's almost the worst place to be as well, because you got to think, well, I don't know where my life's going, and I would love to have a plan, but I don't know what I want to achieve. So how can I have a plan for something I don't know that even exists yet? So but the thing is, then you just got to go, okay, go out and try a few things. Maybe just enjoy your life for a little bit and find out what you love to do, and eventually something will click, and you'll find out what your niche is. Because everyone wants to be successful. I think a lot of people want to be successful. People want to have more money. People want to have a good relationship. They want to have a nice house. They want to have a job that they love to do.
Yeah, but it's the process behind it, I think. People
it is, yeah. But I think the start point has to come from, I want to do this, or I want to make this amount of money so I can then provide for my family, or so I can then create the experiences that will make me happy. So again, you meet people who they do just enough in a job so they can fuel their lifestyle of what they love to do. So if someone loves to go and surf in Australia and it costs them X amount of pounds to get a flight over there and do that twice a year, they work to save enough money so they can go and do that, right? And if they're happy doing that, fine, best of luck to them. And fulfillment and happiness comes in all shapes and sizes for different people. So it depends on the person, what they want, what they perceive as being fulfillment, or what they perceive as being success. And then they've got to decide what they want to do, and then they've got to decide how they're going to get there. And then they're going to, honestly, the other thing as well, people often know what they want to be or what they want to do, and they know where they are now, right? So that's the other thing as well. You've got to find out, where am I now? Like a business, if I want to achieve that, I need to find out where I am at this moment in time. What is my position? What's my situation? And then you can't think of it as one big leap, because it's too overwhelming. So you think, okay, this is what I want to achieve. So if I said to you, I want to make £10 million, well, from now I'm like, man, it almost seems impossible. It's a huge amount of money, but then that has to be
broken down
into chunks, right? Or if I want to help 3 million people, that's a lot of people to help in the next 10 minutes. But I mean, if I think, okay, if I can structure a business that will then make that business scale, how do I make that happen? And then you just do the maths and you go, okay, this is doable, but I've got to start here. This has got to be my first goal.
In the simplest form, it's walking into a gym, I suppose, and say you can deadlift 100 kilos, you want to deadlift 200. You're not going to be able to do that in a week. You need to know that you're steadily progressing each week.
It's a great way of getting that point across, actually. In fact, I'm surprised I've never done it myself, being someone who owns a gym, but it's a really, really good way to sort of... do you ever follow David Goggins?
I actually did. I listened to his podcast with Joe Rogan. He's a machine. He's
an absolute machine, mentally and physically, right? But he explains it in a really, really simple way, and how he found out himself. And I found myself, that really resonated with me, because I actually used to do this when I was on selection, right? Because obviously you get tired, you get hungry, you get pissed off, you get to the point where you think, you're not going to be good enough to pass, or whatever it is, right? And something's got to drive you forward. So it's a bit like when you go, I've got to get to that checkpoint in that next mountain over there, and it seems so far. But if then you go, and this is what David Goggins says, and it really resonated with me because I thought that's actually really, really something that I can relate to. As he got to a point where he thought, I only have to get to there, 10 metres away. So you go, when I get to the 10 metre point, then I only have to get to that next point, and you break it down into tiny little chunks. So then you go, okay, that rock up there that's 20 metres away, all I need to do is get there. And when you get there, you pick another point and say, all I need to do is get there. But all those little small steps add up to the big picture, to the larger distance. And it's a weird way, but it does actually work. Things like that really, really work. And if you can just chunk things down, and it's a bit like your computer, you've got things in different chunk sizes. You've got your files, you've got your sub-files, you've got your folders, you've got all these different things. But it all has to be systemised. Yeah. Right? And it's a good way of, when you chunk it down in goals in life, like I want to achieve this, how am I going to get there? Okay, and then you have a map, and you have to break it down into smaller goals.
If you break it down all the way to daily goals, it seems a lot more achievable, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Yeah. Well, look at I say to my clients, I might have a client that says, right, okay, one of my clients at the moment, he said his stepdaughter's getting married, and he's giving it away. I said, okay, how long have you got? And he says, wait, I've got 5 months. Like, wait, 5 months? So that's quite a lot of time. And considering the amount of weight that I thought he had to lose, if I was to say to him, right, you need to lose this much weight, you need to lose 2 stone. If you think about just 2 stone, you go, 2 stone's got a lot of weight to lose. But if I break that down into chunks and I say, well, you only have to lose this much weight every 2 weeks, for example.
Yeah, it's a lot more attainable.
All of a sudden, it's really achievable. You go, this is easy, right? And it's going to fluctuate, and it's going to go up, and it's going to go down. But when you look at it on the smaller scale, you think it's actually really achievable. All I have to do is be consistent. The problem with people these days is that they're fits and starts all the time, so they're never consistent on a daily basis. And it's the consistency that really, really gets the job done with anything.
Definitely. Yeah. So thanks for that, Lindsay. Is there anything you'd like to say or give shout-outs to before we leave?
I would just like to obviously give myself a bit of a plug here, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what the space is for.
Is that the new Elite Performance will be opening on the evening of the 12th of March, which is a Monday. We're going to do a soft opening first for members and guests, but anyone is welcome to come along. But we will be doing, the doors will officially be open on the 12th of March at 6 p.m, right? And then the grand opening will be a couple of weeks, date to be confirmed yet, but it will be released soon. But they're going to have a grand opening as well about 2 weeks after that. So the end of March will be the official grand opening, and we're going to have many things here. Like I said before, Hunter G's Healthy Food Kitchen. We're going to have the hair boutique, which is the hairdressers upstairs. Katie Allen, who's got our beauty therapy clinic upstairs, and a few other things. We'll have a brand new gym. The gym's going to be all kitted out with some new equipment. It's going to be bigger. There's going to be a lot of things happening. It's going to be, the place to be. So
come and check it out.
If anyone wants to, get fit this year, this is going to be the place.
They can find you on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. It's not hard to find.
So all Elite Performance.
Elite Performance Hereford on Facebook. Yeah, everything else you can get from there. But the website is eliteperformance.co.uk.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lindsay.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So that was episode 2. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us on all our platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to us on iTunes if you're using iTunes. It's Breaking the Norm podcast on all platforms. Also, we mentioned Tim Crockett in there. He's rowing the Atlantic in support of veterans with PTSD. So if you want to support that challenge, visit www.tamethecraken.com, and Kraken is Kraken. They've already managed to secure some very good sponsors in the form of 7-Eleven and On It, as well as many others, but they need your help to ensure they can complete the challenge. So please visit their website or go to their Facebook page, Tame the Kraken. Thanks for listening. Make sure you look out for our podcast and blog posts in the near future.